friends, it's Allison. Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to disassemble another card. It seems to be my thing lately. I don't know if it's because I'm growing more indecisive by age. I don't know. But today we're going to be using the Envelope of Wonder. This is a new die set this month, huge die set from Spellbinders. You can see everything that's included there. And there are also some add-on sets for the Envelope of Wonder. So the one that I happen to have is Autumn Wonder. And again, this is a really big die set as well. I haven't been able to use this yet, but I have plans for it. There are also Halloween and Christmas sets available. So the other item, and you've seen it before if you've seen all my videos, this is the Sentiments of Wonder. This is a better press plate set, and it comes with matching dies. I used these on some Halloween cards recently, and I think there's stamps that are available with the same sentiments. So here are the main dies of the set. One that cuts the main part of the envelope, the sides of the envelope, that little piece there kind of creates the illusion of an envelope liner. So I've cut all my parts out with some lilac cardstock. And there's a little piece that goes on top. Now, to create the look of an envelope flap, or I'm sorry, an envelope liner, I am going to emboss the main part with the Tiny Dots embossing folder. So I want my envelope liner to have the debossed look of the dots. So I'm going to flip it over, because if I put it in as it is, the dots would be raised on the front of my envelope. So I want to just flip it over, and I'll run that through my die cutting machine. And here you will see how that looks. All right, so now for assembly, it's really easy. There's score lines that the dies create, and I'm just going to reinforce those folds with my bone folder. And again, there's two sides and a bottom flap for the envelope. So I'll reinforce the folds both on the back and the front. And here's the bottom piece. And again, just really easy. And now what I'm going to do is glue these on. Now you could use double-sided tape, but I kind of like having some play time in order to, if I don't place it right the first time, I just like having a little bit of wiggle room, and that's what liquid glue gives you. So because I'm attaching this to an embossed panel, I'm really going to reinforce this glue by pressing down on both sides. And I'll use my bone folder again just to make sure that that glue seals it really well. And I'll go ahead and I'll do that for all three flaps. So again, it's just really easy. So who's tired of watching me rip cards apart? I don't know why it seems like I'm doing it more lately, or maybe it's just because I've been videotaping my cards now, and so maybe I just notice it more about myself, but I don't know. I'm just trying to keep it real. Like sometimes I create a card and that's a card and I love it, but sometimes you make something and it just doesn't sit right with you. So here's where it goes wrong, I think. I have this little, this is the card that's going to be in the envelope. And by the way, the sentiments on this card, one is from the Everyday Sentiments too. That's the Hello Friend. And then the sub-sentiment is from the inside card Glimmer Sentiments. And I used black foil for both of those. And by the way, I'm just attaching this piece on top, and that's going to make it look more like there's an envelope liner. So part of the problem, I think, is I created this little card to put in the envelope at an angle, and you'll see later that there's like angles fighting each other. But we'll get to that. Here is my collection of all of the die cuts from this set. I've cut it out of several colors of cardstock, and I'll show you some of the assembly. I mean, it's just straightforward gluing of the parts. So nothing too exciting. But, you know, I know it looks like a mess, but you'll see some of the other, like, so for these flowers, I do create kind of an assembly line fashion. I'll get all the little parts right around the base so that I can just glue them all at once. And, you know, I don't have to go fishing around for all the parts. So just create an assembly line for, you know, when you're having to glue a lot of die cuts like this, and it just goes a lot faster. So again, here's where I created a little assembly line. I can glue all those tiny little centers onto these flowers. All right, so here's what I was talking about. I placed the envelope at one angle. The little card in the envelope is coming out at a different angle. And then here's where I start, you know, trying to come up with a design. And in my head, I'm telling myself, don't put too many flowers on this card, because there's just a fine line between not enough flowers and too many flowers. And at the time, I thought I was doing a good job of not putting too many flowers, but in the end, I don't think I was very successful. But again, it's just a lot of playing around and coming up with the design that you want. And I do, you know, play around with this until I'm happy with, well, or what I thought was happy at the time with how it looks. And then I will start gluing, and I will start gluing from the bottom up. So I think I'm ready to start gluing now. So I'll start with this little leaf in the bottom right corner, and I only glue really the part that's going to go underneath the envelope. I like to leave, especially with flowers and leaves, I like to leave the ends loose. I think it just creates more movement in your card. And so again, I'm just going to go from the bottom up and start gluing on all of these elements. So the reason I put the little card coming out of the envelope, I was just trying to do something different with this set. You'll see a lot of amazing examples from other designers using the envelope of wonder. I have loved seeing everybody's creations. But, you know, I was trying to think, what can I do that's different? And I thought it would be cute to have the little card poking out of the envelope. Now, I think the card was, you can see the card is not as wide as the envelope, but because I was putting it in at an angle, that's why I cut it a little bit narrower. So here I'm ready to glue down the envelope, and you'll see I'm not gluing down the flap of the envelope, I'm just gluing down the back. And I can still glue all the flowers at the top underneath the flap because it's not adhered. So you'll see me, I can still tuck everything in, but at least I have the envelope down so that I can, you know, figure out the best placement of these elements. Okay, so again, I thought at the time that I wasn't putting too many flowers, and here I'm just going to glue the bottom part of the card inside the envelope. And by the way, I forgot to mention, I didn't seal up the flaps of the envelope yet because I'm tucking stuff inside the envelope. So don't glue down the flaps of the envelope until, you know, you've tucked everything in. Otherwise, you'd have to do even more surgery than I end up doing. So anyway, I thought at the time that I wasn't putting too many flowers, but I think the placement And here, now I'm ready to glue the flaps closed. I think the placement of all the flowers, there were just in too many places. And you'll see in a minute, I'll show you the finished card. And I'll show you what I think went wrong with the design. So here's the card. I think your eye just doesn't know where to go. There's like flowers everywhere. And really, I want to focus on the sentiment, the hello friend. So this sat in my room for like 2 weeks. I was not happy with it. I just couldn't figure out what it needed. And so finally, like several weeks later, here I am and performing surgery like I seem to do a lot lately. So I'm taking my little blade and just really carefully running it under this envelope. And I'll get the envelope off first before I deal with everything else. Now, my goal with all of my surgical maneuvers is to not have to redo any of this. I don't want to make another envelope. I don't want to have to die cut more flowers. I don't want to have to hot foil another little card with those sentiments. So I'm just being as careful as I can to save all of the elements that I can. So here I've almost got the envelope off. And I just keep running my blade under it until it pops off. So there we go. Everything is intact. I didn't ruin anything about the envelope. So that was success. So now remember I had said I only glue on the ends of the leaves and stuff. So some of these I can just rip off the tops and I know that I can reuse those. I'm not worried about the parts that are glued to the paper right now, because those were hiding anyway. You never saw those parts anyway. So again, the rest of them, like this purple flower, this was all glued down. So I'm very carefully trying to save this flower. And again, there are damaged parts, but you're not going to see those anyway. So now I've flipped my card base over just to kind of play around with what I now want my design to look like. So again, just playing around with some of the flowers that I was able to save. And I then decided, you know what, I think part of the problem is also this white card base. I think it's fighting with the little card. So now I have created a new card base. I just took a purple piece of cardstock and I was able to glue it to my original card base. I just got all the little bits off. And I ink blended the edges of this purple cardstock. It's the same color as my envelope, so I tried to, ink blend the edges. I think I could have ink blended it a little bit more. But now I've attached some thin foam squares onto the back of the envelope. Now, this corner, I didn't do that because that corner is going to be sitting on the flowers right there in that corner. So I think this is going to, having the thin foam tape, it's going to pop it off the card base. And because the card base is the same color, it's just, it's going to just make it stand out a little bit more. So I even put glue on the foam dots just in case I needed some wiggle room. And so again, now I can attach a few more elements. And I even went back. I had saved some die cuts from when I originally made the card a few weeks earlier. So I found some more leaves, and I'm going to cut off the leaves of this little blue stem and tuck it under this purple flower. So if you have excess die cuts from assembling a card like this, don't throw them away. Not that I'm saying you're going to rip your cards apart in a couple weeks, but it's nice to have them for some other card that you make, especially floral elements. You can always add floral elements to anything. So we're almost finished. I'm just adding back some gems that I had on my original card. And I'm a lot happier with it. So here's a before and after. And you see how the post-surgery, as I call it, your eye just goes to that sentiment. And I think it just, I don't know. I think it looks better. I'm going to let you be the judge. Here's the final card. I'm not going to say it's my favorite card I've ever made, but I'm so much happier with it. I think it's a much better design. It's cleaner and more focused. But let me know your thoughts. I thank you for joining me today, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.